as a unique connection between the world's oldest and largest democracies, with a special obligation now to demonstrate that our governments can deliver for.
The most important priority is essentially it is oriented towards the development of the people.
Defense remains an area of mutual cooperation. We as Honeywell has interest in that, so we'll certainly support what both governments want to propose forward.
It's a matter of pride for all of us simply because both countries can learn a lot from each other. In fact, America can learn so much from India.
मेन तो आज हम इसके लिए आए हुए हैं, मोदी को सपोर्ट के लिए।
यहाँ भी 3 दिन रुकने वाले हैं और मोदी के लिए बहुत सपोर्ट करने वाले हैं।
Hello and welcome to our special broadcast. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has begun his 4-day visit to the United States. The Prime Minister is expected to land at the Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. tonight, where he will be welcomed by members of the Indian diaspora. As a part of his tight schedule, Prime Minister Modi is expected to meet top American CEOs, including Elon Musk. In an exclusive interview to Wall Street Journal, Prime Minister Modi said that ties between India and the United States are stronger and deeper than ever before, asserting that there is an unprecedented trust between the two leaders on the Russia-Ukraine war. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Some people say that we are neutral, but we are not neutral. We're on the side of peace, and the world has full confidence that India's topmost priority is peace," end of quote. To take this forward, we are joined by Michael Kugelman, Director of the South Asia Institute at the Wilson Center, also Mukesh Aghi, President of the US-India Business Council. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Michael, give us a sense of how this visit, this meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden, and a lot of preparation work, a lot of high-level meetings have happened the last 6 months in the run-up to this visit. How will this visit give a new phase or a new direction to India-US ties?
Right. Well, I mean, this is a state visit, and state visits are relatively rare. The U.S. has many partners, many allies, and many of those allies and partners don't get this type of honor that Prime Minister Modi has received. So I think that the fact that he was invited to come as a state visitor is in of itself a reflection of the importance with which the U.S. government views the relationship with India. So I think that's important to start with. I would argue that, as one would expect for a state visit and a major high-level summit, there's going to be a lot of agreements and deals on a variety of issues, from defense to space to higher education and so much more. But for me, what really stands out is that as we understand things at this point, it looks like there's going to be some major breakthroughs, particularly in the defense sphere, on deals that have been elusive for a number of years. It looks like there's going to be a major announcement on a U.S. drone package to India. We've heard about this for many years, but it's not materialized until now. That's significant. Also, the fact that it looks like there could be a big announcement on this GE deal to provide jet engines to India, that would represent an unprecedented tech transfer to India. Tech transfers have been talked about for many years, but on many levels they haven't been able to go through. So I would argue that we're looking at a new phase in this relationship because we're starting to see the types of deals that we have not seen before, because there have been a number of sticking points that clearly the two sides have been willing to get around. So I think that's very significant as well.
Right. Mr. Aghi, coming to you, give us a sense of the kind of business deals we're expecting. Yes, there are some big-ticket deals on the defense side when it comes to Predator drones, the GHAL deal. We're also hearing about Micron possibly making an investment of $1 billion, and that announcement could come as early as tomorrow or on Thursday. But are there other business announcements on the cards? Give us a sense of what's on the business agenda during this visit.
Well, when you look at the trade between the two countries, it's now touching $190 billion. And I think the visit should not be measured in the area of just transactions. I think the visit should be measured on a long-term basis. And what we are seeing is a seriousness on part of US and India to basically incorporate some of the technologies coming from the US into India itself. Yes, we're talking about GE engines being manufactured in India. We're talking about India putting an order for drone deals. But more important is there's serious discussion going on artificial intelligence and cooperation on quantum computing, on cybersecurity. And we're looking at areas of skills development, looking at education. So I think what we're seeing is US companies getting more and more serious about de-risking from China and moving into India. So I think I would like to go beyond just talking about a couple of deals. I think what we are seeing is a much more deeper sense of transfer of technology where India can leverage that to basically lift the quality of life of the citizens.
Right. Michael, coming back to you on the issue of Russia-Ukraine, how do you think it's going to figure in talks between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden? And the reason why I'm asking it up front, because to the Wall Street Journal, the Prime Minister said that India will do whatever it can and supports genuine efforts to bring the conflict to an end. How do you see this statement ahead of the visit, where it's quite possible that there may be a discussion of the Russia-Ukraine war?
Right. They'll definitely discuss Russia-Ukraine. I mean, that's something that the U.S. will bring up in any type of high-level engagement with its key partners. It'll definitely come up. I think that will be the message that comes from Prime Minister Modi, that this is not an era of war, something that he said many times before. I imagine he could give that message or some variation of it in his address, in his joint address to Congress. I think that there will be discussion perhaps about how India can leverage its role as a country that has this special relationship with Russia, but also a good relationship with the Ukraine. Now, it may not be realistic to think that that Prime Minister Modi would actually be willing to put himself out there and publicly offer to mediate or try to mediate an end to the war. I don't think Putin is at all interested in ending the war. But I think that the thing to highlight here is that Russia-Ukraine is not a tension point in the U.S.-India relationship now, as it had been soon after the invasion began, because the U.S. has accepted India's position. It hasn't agreed with it, but it's accepted it, that India is not going to publicly criticize, condemn the invasion or Russia or whatnot. And I think that another discussion that could be carried out along these lines during the Biden-Modi visit is Biden will probably try to make the argument that over the longer term, Russia will no longer be will no longer have the capacity to be a close security partner of India, because it'll be so war-scarred and cash-strapped and so on. And we have seen in recent weeks that expected deliveries of the S-400 missile defense system from Russia to India have been delayed because of the war in Ukraine. So the administration will play a long game on this issue. It is not going to pressure Modi to take a stronger stand against the invasion or against Russia. The focus will be on the longer-term ramifications for India of this war and what that could mean for Russia's relationship with India, and how the U.S. over the course of time could have the ability to start working more closely with India to provide the types of supplies, including military equipment, that India has long depended on from Russia. But clearly that's a long-term discussion.
Right. Mr. Aghi, coming to you, give us a sense of some of the issues that the U.S. industry would like to raise with India. You already said that our trade was around $130 billion. It's 7.6% up over 2021-2022. If you were to outline some issues in the trade partnership from the U.S. side, from the industry side, what would those be?
Well, when you look at last 9 years of Modi administration, what we have seen is that ease of doing business has improved. There is substantial more transparency. But I think the industry would like to see that we keep on improving on ease of doing business and having a neutral level playing field for the industry. I think when I look at the U.S. companies which have presence in China, they are seriously looking at de-risking that presence. And we saw this case in the case of Apple. 3 years ago, Apple was not producing anything in India. And now by next year, it will produce 20 million iPhone 14s and creating a major manufacturing site both in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. So I think the industry will always keep on asking, lower tariffs, better facilities, more ease of doing business. That process continues. But I think India has improved a lot, and it'll keep on improving. And the U.S. industry is excited about not only just moving, de-risking from China, but also leveraging the growing market, the growing spending power of Indian citizens for its products also.
Right. Mr. Aghi, I'd also like to ask you about some of the CEOs who are likely to call on the Prime Minister. We are hearing about Elon Musk, Sanjay Mehrotra of Micron, the CEO of GE, the CEO of Applied Materials as well. There have been a lot of conversation between Tesla and the Indian government as early and as recently as 3 to 4 days back. Do you see Tesla seriously considering India as a destination for automobile manufacturing or even battery manufacturing? Or possibly it's only going to be about increasing component sourcing from India?
Well, you have to look at it from a Tesla perspective. You know, their giga plant in Shanghai ran into some challenges during COVID times. It does have another giga plant in Berlin, and India becomes a potential market and also a market to export from India to the rest of the world. So I think it is a serious discussion. Yes, there are issues which I think both sides need to sit down and sort it out. And if the Prime Minister is meeting with Elon Musk, so India is serious about having Tesla come in and set up a plant here. But you have to understand other factor which has implication. A Tesla car takes roughly 1,800 to 2,000 chips per car. So once Tesla starts manufacturing, you will have a massive demand for chip manufacturing in India. That basically justifies other companies to come in and set up semiconductor chip manufacturing itself, which India is very, very keen to work on. So I think it is a long-term benefit for India to make sure that Tesla comes in and set up a plant and also sourcing environment from India itself.
That's an important point, that the entry of Tesla to manufacture in India could drive up the demand for semiconductor and the supply chain for semiconductors locally in India. Michael, coming back to you, give us a sense of the optics of this visit. What can we see in terms of the movement on IPEF, movement on Quad, and what are some of the geopolitical and strategic objectives that President Biden will seek to achieve?
Well, in terms of the optics, as one would expect for a state visit, there's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance, you know, from the 21-gun salute at the arrival ceremony for Prime Minister Modi at the White House to, you know, the various other activities that are planned. It's going to be a pretty big deal. But, you know, many commentators, including the Indian ambassador to the U.S., have noted that the substance will likely match the symbolism. And I think that's accurate. You know, as we discussed, there's a lot on the table. There's going to be a lot discussed. There's going to be a number of major substantive deliverables and outcomes across the spectrum. In terms of what President Biden is looking to get out of this geopolitically, I think that you know, the main objective is to really to underscore just how important the relationship is between the U.S. and India, and to deliver the message that, yes, I mean, there may be some sticking points, there may be some things that the two sides don't agree on, but clearly there is a strong imperative, and from the perspective of the U.S. and India, I'm sure, really a strategic geopolitical imperative to work together and strengthen cooperation, mainly because of the shared concern about China's expanding power. You know, you look, both the U.S. and India have seen their relations with China take a major tumble over the last few years. Both countries have seen their relations with China fall to the lowest level in a number of decades. So I think that President Biden will want to underscore to Prime Minister Modi, you know, the importance of the strategic partnership. But I think it's not just going to be about strategic issues and geopolitics. I think that, you know, President Biden will want to make the argument as well that this is an important relationship in of itself, you know, divorced from geopolitical strategic imperatives, looking at people-to-people ties, the growth there, just how much cooperation there is. And ultimately, I think President Biden will want to deliver a message that this is very much a strategic partnership. It is not a transactional arrangement by any means, even with all these agreements that are coming out. So I agree with what Mukesh Aghi said before. President Biden will likely underscore that, you know, this is a deep strategic partnership, growing levels of intelligence sharing, trust, goodwill, cooperation in many different spaces. So I think it's that one of the objectives of this visit is just to underscore that simple but important message for Prime Minister Modi.
Right. Okay, we've run out of time. Michael Kugelman, Mukesh Aghi, thank you very much for joining us. But don't go anywhere. India is set to buy